Hi, everyone. We'll just give all of our participants a few moments to come in the webinar. Thanks for joining us today. All right, I will get started. Hello again, everyone. My name is Lydia Nimke. Welcome to Technology Tuesdays, all about accessibility features for computers and smart devices. I will let you all know that your microphones are muted and your cameras are turned off by default, but please feel free to ask questions for our presenter at any time through the questions box down below, and I will read them aloud. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our speaker, Cindy Pitchler, who is the Senior Assistive Technology Specialist from Independence First. Thank you, Cindy, for presenting for us today.
Well, thank you for asking me. As Lydia said, my name is Cindy Piekler. I'm the Senior Assistive Technology Specialist at Independence First. So I work a lot with digital equipment, computers, and smart devices. And there is so much that is built into these devices to make them accessible and just easier to use. So without further ado, I am going to make an attempt to share my screen. It was not wildly successful before, but let's see if it works this time. Am I sharing, Lydia?
You are.
All right. So as I said, I work for Independence First. We are the resource for people with disabilities, and we're located on First in Virginia in Milwaukee. And we have a very large program that has a variety of equipment for people with disabilities. We have about a little short of 1,700 devices in our program that are available for demonstration and or loan. A lot of them are available for loan. But we also spend a great deal of time working with digital technology, helping people to become more independent through digital technology. So, and my screen is not advancing. There we go. So when I talk about digital technology, I'm talking about computers, phones, and tablets. And essentially there are three different platforms that people can use. There is the Android platform, which is the most cost effective for folks on a budget. There is the Windows platform, which is found most commonly in the workplace. And then there is the Apple platform, which has the Macintosh computer, the iPhone, and the iPad, and the iPod Touch. And those are found very commonly in schools and a lot of workplaces as well. There are a treasure trove of features that can make these devices more useful for people. And what's really interesting is when I have school districts or the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation or just people in general asking about special equipment, they don't really realize how much is already built into these devices that we don't even know we have in our pocket or sitting on our desk. I'm going to be discussing Windows computers primarily and iPhones as the digital devices, but every single thing I'm going to be talking about this afternoon exists on every platform. So they may call it a little bit something different and they may hide it in a different place, but there is not one thing that one of these devices has that the others don't. So it doesn't matter if you're on a computer or an Android or an Apple or a tablet or a phone, it doesn't matter. What I'm going to be talking about exists everywhere. So the settings are a good place to just kind of hang out, play around a little bit and see what's there. You don't necessarily need to touch anything if you're afraid of maybe screwing something up, which I was at the beginning when I first started doing it. But the Windows has the Ease of Access Center, which is the blue icon on the left. The iPhone accessibility settings look like the little gear. And then if you're on Macintosh or Android, both of them have their accessibility settings looking like people exercising. Just before we launch into some of this, there's just some things that, again, a lot of people don't even realize they're there. If you see, especially on a mobile device, a right arrow like the one at the top of the screen here, that usually means that there's more options that are not immediately displayed on the screen. Left arrows are typically used for navigation. They help you get back to where you had been before. Right arrows can be navigation, but they also often mean that there's more options. If you see a circle with an I in the middle or a circle with a question mark in the middle, it typically means there's more information available. For instance, one of the things that you can do if you get one of those spam risk phone calls on your phone, after, I'm assuming that when I get them, I don't answer spam risk phone calls. I just don't want to know. I don't want to talk to somebody who's trying to sell me, an extended warranty for my car, for instance. I will wait until the call disengages, and then I'll go back and I'll tap on that call, and there's always that little circle with the I in it. And with that, I can see the number of the person who called me. And if it's somebody whose call I was expecting, but maybe I wasn't familiar with the number, I can just find out the number of the person who called. I can also look back and I was talking to my daughter one day, and she lives in San Francisco, so it felt like the conversation went on quite a while. So when the call was over again, I went and I tapped on the call and I found the little circle with the I and found out we'd been talking for over an hour. It just gives you more information about the things that you're looking at. Microsoft has a wonderful little feature that's built into all of its Office software. So this would be Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc. You usually find it at the top of the screen, and it looks like that little light bulb, and it says, "Tell me what you want to do." And this is a marvelous little feature that lets you, if you think you can do something, but you're not sure how. For instance, in an Excel, I was in Excel a little while ago, and I wanted to be able to add a column of numbers, and I knew there was a way to do it. I just didn't remember what it was. I went to that box and I typed in, I want to add a column of numbers. And it showed me what I needed to do. The statement I make at the top of this slide cannot be underestimated. Possibly the most useful tool ever devised was the search or find feature. On a computer, you can activate it by hitting the Control key and the F key at the same time. You can also find, if you're a mouser and you don't remember keyboard shortcuts, you can go to the, if you look at the middle line there, it's with the Windows icon on the left, and it says type here to search. On a Windows computer, you can search for just about anything. You can search for programs, you can search for documents, you can even initiate an internet search from that spot. Search boxes are everywhere. Sometimes they have the word search in them. Sometimes they have magnifying glass by them. Sometimes they have both, as you can see in the last picture, the bottom picture, that is an actual screenshot from an iPhone, and they have the magnifying glass and the word search. And you can activate the search feature in an iPhone by swiping down from the top of the screen. Search is a wonderful tool for those of us who don't have good memories and we can't remember where we left something or where we stored something. You can even search for words within documents or within emails. And that was really helpful today. I needed to get in touch with Lydia. And so I just went to my email, which has way too many emails in it, and I typed her name in the search box, and all of her emails came up, and I could find her phone number very easily. So search is a great tool, especially if you tend to be forgetful. Now you can set your devices up to be searched. If you look at the photo on the left, that is an actual calendar entry using Microsoft Outlook. And as you can see, I've filled out just about everything. I have an address in the location. I put in a phone number, and I put a list of things that I wanted to take to that particular event. And I put them in the notes section, and I'll be talking a little bit about why we want to do the note, why we want to use the notes section a little bit later. But I put that same entry into my iPhone, and if you look, you'll see that the address is underlined. And that is because when you put the location of where your appointments are in the location window, when you're filling out your calendar entry, it will actually hook it up to your GPS. So if I can't find Hillman Road in Baraboo, Wisconsin, all I have to do is touch that entry and it'll start my GPS going and it'll route me right there. You will also see that the phone number is highlighted. And rather than having to look at that, remember 608-254-1020, I can simply touch that and it links it up to my phone and it initiates a phone call for me. So knowing how to properly use all of the features that are present in your devices can really save an enormous amount of time. In the notes field there, for this particular presentation, I had to take some equipment with me. And as I thought of the devices that I wanted to take with me, I would open up the appointment, write down the device, and a couple days later, I'd come up with another thing that I wanted to add in there. And I'd write down the device. And it just takes a lot of the stress and pressure off, because you can think of things as you go. And then the day that I needed to leave, I opened up the appointment again. I had my list of things that I wanted to take with me, and it was all sitting there. You can do the same thing with contacts. We all have an address book in our mobile devices, and we all have an address book in our email on our computers. I really strongly encourage people to fill out the addresses and your contacts completely. First name, last name, address, phone number, fax number, whatever it is that you know about the person, fill it out as completely as you can. You can sort addresses in your mobile devices, and you can sort them by how you think. I personally think first name first and then last name, so I can sort them that way. My brother actually sorts last name first and then first name. It's just how you think, and it just lets you customize how the contacts show up for you. One other thing I strongly encourage people to do is have an ICE number. ICE stands for in case of emergency. And first responders are trained to pick up mobile devices, which are now all voice activated. And there's always an activation word, and my phone is going to freak out here, but for the iPhone, it's Siri. And they are trained to ask for calling ICE. And what that will do is it will pull up your emergency number. So in my case, I have ICE my daughter, Anna, my daughter, Ice, David, my son, and Ice, Brian, my husband. But do identify the relationship of the people that you are identifying as your emergency contacts. That way, when first responders call, if they do need to get a hold of somebody on your behalf, they know who they're talking to. And if you have duplicate names in your family, it lets them know whether they're talking to Betty the grandmother or Betty the granddaughter, just that kind of thing. Now here is an example of an iPhone contact that I filled out for Joe Doe. I put his phone number, his address, and you'll notice down in the notes, I put that Joe's favorite color is orange. I can search by name, which is what happened in the middle section here. I searched by Doe and Joe Doe came up. But if I know, if for some reason all I can remember about Joe is that he really liked the color orange, the fact that I actually put it in his contact means I can search for that. Now, several years ago, my husband and I attended a seminar, and the guy who was running the seminar's name was Armando. And we met several people at the seminar we thought we would want to have contact with later at a later date. But we didn't really know them. We didn't get to spend a lot of time talking to them. So I took down their phone numbers and I put the name Armando in the notes section. And then a few months later, when we wanted to go back and follow up with these people, all I had to do was search Armando, and all of the people that I met at that seminar that I wanted to follow up with came up as options in my list because I had deliberately made everything searchable. That search feature is so incredibly powerful, especially when you set yourself up to be able to benefit from it. You can customize your contacts on your phone. So for instance, a lot of us already know how to do this, but you can have like family have a certain ringtone, or friends have a certain ringtone, or work have a certain ringtone. I really encourage people not to overdo this because, you know, once you start doing it, it's fun. But if you have too many ringtones after a while, they really don't mean anything. It's just a bunch of different sounds. But if everybody in a certain category, like family, friends, or work, has the same ringtone, it lets you selectively decide whether or not you want to answer a call without actually having to get too deep into whether or not this is, you know, digging around, seeing, is this really somebody I want to talk to? And I've talked a little bit about notes. I'm going to talk about them again, just because they're so incredibly helpful. There is a notes app on every phone, on every tablet, and there also is a notes app on every computer. There's also a notes section in every calendar entry and in every contact. For students, I typically suggest that they put their instructor's information in the contacts, but also include their office hours and you know, any other relevant information they may need about the instructor, just so that they don't have to wonder, you know, gosh, is this guy in his office on Wednesday afternoons? Well, if you entered that information, you can go back and check. And that's what the notes sections are for. And they just really are a nice tool to help people use their devices more effectively. Another feature that I especially like is making use of the calendar, or of the camera, the recorder, and, you know, just the video capabilities of all of our devices. We have learned through the pandemic the power of video, and we're all here today because of video. And there's also an app that is built into the Apple iPhone platform. You can download one for the Android platform that does just straight audio recording. Now, why would you want to do something like that? If you are going into a high stress situation, such as a doctor appointment, and you're really afraid the doctor is not going to give you good news, a lot of times it's so stressful that we miss or we overlook what's being told to us. If you turn on the recorder, you'll get the entire visit recorded. If you use the camera, I've actually had people do some really fascinating things with their cameras. For instance, somebody who needed therapy, their therapist wanted them to do specific moves, but they had also hired a personal trainer. And this particular individual couldn't talk very well because of an accident that they'd had. So they had difficulty communicating verbally. So what they would do is they would go to therapy, they would hand their phone to the therapist, who would then video them doing the exercises correctly. And the therapist would explain on the video what he was doing and why. The person would then take the same recording and show it to their personal trainer. And the trainer would then watch the video, follow up and support what was going on in therapy. But if the trainer was seeing something that the therapist didn't, they would video it and then the person would take it back to the therapist. So it's a great way to do communication back and forth between multiple parties, I guess. And like I said, I'm a big fan of using the recorder if you're in a high stress situation. And FaceTime has, or any type of video recording has been just a godsend during the pandemic for people to communicate with each other. It's been a nice way to establish or reestablish those social links. I know at Christmas, my daughter was not able to come home. She lives out in California, and we typically only see her at Christmas. So with the pandemic this year, she wasn't able to come home, and it had been over a year since we had last seen her. So as a parent, I was kind of heartbroken. So what we did is we set up a mobile device at Christmas, and when our other child came over to the house, we connected virtually with our daughter in California. We did our gift opening. We ate dinner at the same time. We had our games that we played afterwards. We did everything that we would normally do at a Christmas party, a family Christmas party, but we did it long distance because we had that video capability. So it's a great way to connect. And I'm sure most of you have already done that. Any questions so far?
I don't see any questions yet, Cindy, but just as a reminder, you can put questions at any point in time in the questions box.
Thank you. Now I'm going to address a little bit of how to make the devices. We talked a little bit about how to make the devices work for you, and now we're going to do a little bit on how to prevent the devices from overstimulating you. Research has shown that the average person is interrupted by an electronic device almost once every 5 minutes during the workday. And that's just an awful lot of interruptions. Depending on how active your social media is and how you have your settings set up, you could be interrupted even more often than that in your personal time. It takes an average of about 25 minutes to fully recover from an interruption, and that means to fully get your head back around where you were before you were interrupted. I think that's probably overstretching it a little bit, but the point that the researchers were trying to make is when you're interrupted, you don't just simply go back to what you were doing before. You have to kind of do a mental reset. So interruptions, especially digital interruptions, can affect memory, focus, decision-making, work quality, mood, and fatigue. And I mean, really think about it. If you've been interrupted quite a bit during the day. Whether the interruptions were good, positive interruptions or not, you're tired. You go home after a very busy day when there's been a lot of interruptions and you're tired. Or if it's been a weekend and everybody's calling or there's just a lot of activity, you just get tired. So interruptions can be external, which is people, sounds, visual things, and our mobile devices. Or they can be internal, which is thoughts and physical sensations. But the physical sensations and the thoughts are often triggered by the external stuff, like the mobile devices. There's actually a new phenomenon that is being treated by massage therapists quite often. They actually call it computer neck. And that's because people who are using mobile devices and computers are spending an awful lot of time looking down. And our our necks were actually not designed to support our heads in a downward looking position for extended lengths of time. So our devices can be causing all sorts of physical and internal issues, as well as if you get good news or bad news through your mobile device, those thoughts can cause interruptions as well. So lots of stuff can happen because of our access to digital information. So how do we protect ourselves? One of the best features that's come about recently is the Do Not Disturb feature. They don't have these on computers, and I really wish they did. I have not found a Do Not Disturb feature on the Windows computer yet, but I have seen it on tablets and I have seen it on telephones. Do Not Disturb silences phone calls and notifications. It can be turned on manually, which is usually a multi-step process because you usually have to go into your settings and then find the Do Not Disturb setting and then click on it. So it's usually at least 3 taps, but all of our devices now allow us to do things by voice. And you can tell your device simply to turn on Do Not Disturb, and it'll do it very easily. Or you can schedule certain times when you don't want to be disturbed. For instance, my husband works 3rd shift from 11 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock at night. He does not want any phone calls. That's when he is sleeping the heaviest. And so we set his Do Not Disturb to work during that time so that way he can't be interrupted. Your phone will record the fact that you got a call. It just won't interrupt you to let you know that you got a call. It can be used to prevent repeated or nuisance calls. And it can also be used if you tend to be distracted when you're driving. And I actually set my phone up so that when I enter the car, I have one of those cars that connects to my phone connects to automatically. As soon as I enter the car, it puts the Do Not Disturb on my phone. It activates it. Now I can turn it off manually, but I will not be able to interact with my phone unless I deliberately tell it that I'm not the person who's driving. So it activates automatically when it connects to my car's Bluetooth, or I could activate it manually. But for those of you who have teenagers and you're worried about them, you can set up the situation where the car will not disturb the person while they're driving. To turn on Do Not Disturb, like I said, it's a multi-step process. And if you look on the left here, I was in the iPhone settings. Do Not Disturb is actually its own setting. And I believe this is the same for Android as well. So at the top of the left-hand panel, Do Not Disturb is actually not activated. I do have it set up that it is scheduled from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That I will not be disturbed. The second panel, if you look at the scheduling, where I have the scheduling toggle on, There is a right arrow, and remember I said right arrows mean that there's something more going on. When you tap on that right arrow, it gives me the ability to customize the do not disturb a little bit. So I can allow calls from anybody who's on my list of favorites. I can have it set up that if I get 2 calls from the same number within 3 minutes, that it'll break through and allow the call to come in. And that's really handy if somebody isn't on your favorites list, but say a friend of yours is dealing with a potential personal emergency. You can tell them, if I don't answer, call me right back, call me again, and it'll break through the do not disturb. You can also turn it on and off manually in the control center of your iPhone, which you activate by swiping down from the middle of the top of the phone. And it looks like a little moon, and you can turn it on and off that way. I really prefer doing it by voice, though. It's just so much easier than going through all of those little taps and swipes and all of that other stuff. If I need to turn my do not disturb on or off, I typically will do it by voice. Notifications. Notifications are a really mixed blessing. They can be helpful. They can be extremely distracting. So choose notifications that you really need. Emails, maybe there's an email that's very important. Maybe there's a text message coming in that you want to know about. My favorite notification that I always allow is airline alerts. If I'm flying and my gate got changed or my flight got canceled, I want to know about it. But if you're trying to limit distractions on the phone, really take a good look at the things that you are allowing notifications for. Most of us do not need to know when social media has been updated by anybody. I really don't need to know my niece's latest baby picture. I don't need to know when my gaming lives have recharged. There are a lot of things that I could get notifications about that really are not important. And by turning them off, you can severely limit the amount of distractions that you get from your devices. Email notifications can be customized. For instance, in our mobile devices, all of our devices will allow us to synchronize with multiple email accounts. So as you can see right here, my Gmail does not notify me when I get an email. My Yahoo account does not notify me when I get an email. My Microsoft Exchange account, which is work-related, then the Microsoft account does notify me when I get an email. And you can choose the style of notification. And we're going to get into that in just a few minutes. Every single app that we download onto our phones, and for a lot of us onto our computers, is going to ask if they can send us notifications. And they have it set up. If you look at this, allow notifications is on the top, and it's nice and big and bold and easy to see. And underneath it is don't allow, which is kind of muted. So they're subtly telling you that they would really love to be able to tell you what's going on. They really want to notify you of things that they think are important. So think really carefully. Do you really need these notifications? And I used to be one of those folks that as soon as I downloaded an app or put something new on my phone and it said, do you want to allow notifications? I automatically said yes. Now I automatically say no, and I rethink about, do I really want a notification from this particular app? Sometimes we do, but most of the time we don't need them. So what kind of notifications are out there? Badges. That's my favorite way to get a notification, and they're little counters. They appear on an app or a folder's icon, and they just let you know how many things that you have such as how many emails, texts, invitations, etc. So it's just a little counter, and the number keeps getting bigger. So if I've looked at all of my texts recently, there shouldn't be anything there. That's the upper left-hand corner. In this particular one, it's been a while. I have 13 texts that I haven't looked at. I also happen to have 152 emails that I haven't looked at. So that's kind of telling me my email kind of blew up today and I might want to take a look at it. But badges are probably the least invasive type of notification because it's just the little counter. Banners are small messages that appear somewhere on your screen. You can designate whether it's in the top of the screen or the middle of the screen. That lets you know when something happens, such as receiving an email or your airline is giving you an update. They can also be configured to be temporary or permanent. So if they're temporary, they'll just flash up and then they'll go away. Permanent ones will kind of hang out there until you delete them. The notification center on mobile devices operates off of the lock screen. And as you can see, if you swipe down from the middle, it will give you all sorts of different notifications. I had a lunch and learn on that particular day. Joanne Fabrics sent me a coupon, and I happen to have some COVID email updates. So all of that comes up just through the notification center. Just lets you have a quick look at things without actually having to take a deeper dive into your mobile device. Now, to manage notifications, once you start managing them and figuring things out, it's fun to play. Tap on notifications in your settings, scroll down to your app list, and then you're going to see the opportunity to customize your notifications. And there you're seeing the banner style. I can have it show it up on the lock screen. I can have it show up in the notification center. I can have it across the top of the screen. I can have it be persistent or temporary. And then I can also have sounds, and we're going to talk about those in a second. So on the left, American Airlines, I have everything. I want to know if American Airlines is sending me a notification and I'm traveling. I want to know that I got it. So I want the sound, I want everything. On the other hand, I do not want to know about Facebook. I will check Facebook when I have time. So I turned the all notifications off on Facebook. Now, iPhones and Androids have the ability to let you decide whether or not the notification will be accompanied by sound. In this particular case, I don't have a sound turned on, but it also lets you select the sound that you want to have. I used to have a medication reminder that sounded like a ghost, and every time I needed to take a medication, it would sound, I would get this little ghostly, woo kind of noise. And it always made people laugh. But I wanted that reaction because if I'm sitting by myself and I get a medication reminder, I'm probably going to say, well, let me finish what I'm doing and then I will go take my medication. And then I will forget. By making it something that other people were going to respond to and laugh at, it just gave me that little extra push. Okay, yeah, I really need to take care of this now. So, you can use your sounds to kind of urge yourself along. We already talked about this a little bit with badges and notifications for multiple different email accounts. Now I want to talk a little bit about brightness and insomnia and diabetes. When computers became laptops, doctors started to see an increase in insomnia. When we started getting tablets and smartphones, doctors saw an epidemic of insomnia. They could not figure out initially where all of this was coming from. When monitors changed from the old big bulky CRT monitors to the current flat screen monitors, there was a huge increase in insomnia. Then some researchers decided to take a look at the relationship between computers and diabetes. And what they found was bright backlighting directly inhibits the release of melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. Our bodies are supposed to release it in the evening when the sun goes down, and the release of melatonin prepares us to sleep. Well, if we're glued to a television, or if we're on the computer, or if we're playing games on our phone, we're getting an enormous amount of light directed into our eyes, and we're never getting that melatonin drop that we need. And then when diabetes researchers started looking into some of the causes and contributing factors in diabetes, they found that a lot of people with type 2 diabetes have low melatonin. So the question of can your computer or smartphone give you diabetes has not been answered fully yet, but the answer is maybe. So what you're starting to see a lot now is on mobile devices, there's a feature that they call night shift. And what that does is it eliminates the blue light that is the factor that causes the insomnia and inhibits the release of melatonin. On computer monitors, they now have monitors that you can buy that have blue light filters built into them. And we are also starting to recognize the importance of building light filters into computer glasses. For instance, the glasses that I'm wearing are tinted so that the blue light that comes out of my computer doesn't get to my eyes. So playing around with night shift can be really helpful. And here I have a really extreme version of what night shift can look like. When you remove the blue light, it causes your background to kind of darken a little bit, kind of on the tan spectrum. So the picture in the middle is what that same screen would look like with night shift really, really fully activated. When you activate night shift, it does give you a range of brightness that what they call warm or less warm. The warmer it is, the redder or the tanner it is. And I found immediately when night shift first came out, I didn't have computer glasses yet. And I found immediately that day, there was a difference in the quality of my sleep. So I have become a very big fan of night shift. When they came out with dark mode, which they did just a couple of years ago, I was questioning whether night shift would still be needed. And oddly enough, even though I tend to use my phone in dark mode, which is a dark background and then lighter print on top of it, I still prefer to use night shift. It still does help with the insomnia. Now, for those of us who have difficulty seeing on small screens, there's a couple of different things that we can do. Now, this is aimed specifically at computers, specifically at Windows computers. If you do the Control key and hit the plus sign on your keyboard, on your number pad, your computer will zoom in. If you hit the Control key and play with the scroll wheel on your mouse, your computer will zoom in. If you're using any of the Microsoft products, they put, and I'm not sure this is the technical term, I call it the zoom bar, but at the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side, there is a sliding bar and the arrow is pointing to it, and then underneath it is what it actually looks like. But it's just a bar with a slider that you can move along the bar, and what it does is it makes everything appear to be larger. And that's what all of these things do. They make things appear to be larger. We haven't actually changed the font size or anything. We're basically having, what it's basically doing is it's making the computer act like we're leaning in closer. But the Control plus key or the Control plus scroll or the zoom bar, all of those can make the appearance of the computer seem bigger and just a lot more comfortable. On mobile devices, in the accessibility settings, we have the ability to alter text size and bold text. And you know, you wouldn't think that bolding your text would have that much of an impact, but it really, really does. If you're having trouble seeing what's going on your screen and reading on your screen because your phone is too small, try setting it up with bold text. You can also alter the text size or the font size on your mobile devices. There is a point slightly before halfway where making the font larger starts to affect the appearance of other things on the screen. So you really have to kind of decide whether or not this is something you want to do, but bolding has made a huge difference. And as you can see on the right, not only did I bold my text, I also made it larger because I just don't like to fight with my phone and I don't like to be uncomfortable. All computers, all mobile devices now have a built-in text reading feature. I'm going to specifically deal with Windows and Apple on how to do it, but it is present. The text reading feature is present on Android devices. It's present on Chromebooks. It's kind of everywhere. And then there is also third-party software that can help people who are having difficulty with reading. But on Apple devices, there's a couple of different options. My favorite is for people who can see but maybe have difficulty understanding what they're reading. And that one's called Speak Selection. And on the Windows side, there is a feature called Immersive Reader. And there's also on the Windows side, a feature called Speak. And all of these read out loud. So the two browsers that have built-in reading support are Microsoft Edge, and it looks kind of like a very stylized E. It's also, and that has Immersive Reader. And Immersive Reader is also found in Office 365 and Office 2019. And it is probably the most exciting advance in reading support that I have seen in decades. I was so incredibly thrilled to see it on Windows environment. Having said that, Macintosh has had a version of Immersive Reader actually for quite a while on its Safari browser. And Immersive Reader on the Windows side looks like a book with a speaker attached to it. On the Macintosh or Safari side, it may look like two A's or it may look like those little hash marks. If you are using Google or Firefox as your browser, there are extensions that also will read out loud to you. So here's an example of what Immersive Reader can do on the Windows side. I have called up an article on Science Daily, and you can see on that first picture there, not only do I have the article, but I have a couple of different ads, and what isn't coming through here is the ads are actually flashing and moving, and they're very distracting, and the print is small, and it's just hard to see. By activating Immersive Reader, I can get rid of all the extra stuff that I'm really not interested in. So all the flashing ads and all of the stuff that the author didn't want me to see disappears. In this particular case, I put a dark background on it with white lettering, and I just made it easier to see. But if you look all the way to the right, I can put any color background I want. I can adjust the size. I can make the font even larger. I can put wider space between the the lines and between the words, just anything I want to configure it to make it easier to see. On the Safari side, it's very similar, same deal. I had a Science Daily article. Now this is something I was looking at on my phone, but there was an awful lot of stuff going on. So, they're asking me if I have a sore throat. I really don't know what that has to do with the COVID thing. Well, actually, it might have something to do with the COVID thing, but it just didn't happen to be a part of that article. So when I touch those A's, I can do show reader view. And what that does then is it, again, customizes the background, customizes what I can see. And within both of these, once the reader has been activated, it will also read out loud to you. So this is really an awesome feature for people with dyslexia, for people with vision issues, who just may get eye strain from reading too small of a print. And Windows and Safari do it best, but you can also do it in Google and you can also do it in Firefox. There's a lot of things you can do to your keyboard to customize it as well. And people don't often think about this. I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I've had a stroke, for instance, and now I can't hold down the shift key and then type another key for the capital letters. Well, sticky keys lets you press keys sequentially instead of together. Maybe somebody has developed Parkinson's and the ability to let up on a key doesn't work as well as it used to, and they get a lot of repeated keys. Well, you can slow down or speed up the key repeat. Maybe somebody has because of tremors, hits the key more than once. You can use filter keys to ignore brief or repeated keystrokes. Maybe somebody can't use a mouse, but can use a keyboard. This happens a lot for folks who have had tremors. You can use the arrow keys on your number keypad on your computer keyboard to act as a mouse. And there is an on-screen keyboard built into every single device. We're used to seeing them on our mobile devices, but it is present on our computer as well. And that's really handy for people who maybe can use a mouse, but can't use a keyboard. You can also make a ton of adjustments to the mouse. Now, if you look at the mouse properties one on the left, at the bottom of it where it says visibility, how many of you lose your mouse on your screen? It's like you start to read something and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, where did my mouse go? You can activate what they call pointer trails. And when you start to move your mouse, it actually has a little trail of mice following around behind it. Just makes it easier to find. There's another one, and that's the one that I have activated, that if you just press the control key, it actually makes it look like a target. There's just it just kind of zooms in and lets you know where your mouse or pointer is. You can also adjust your pointer style. I actually had my boss use my computer a few weeks ago. He was using it for something and he's got vision issues. And so he changed my mouse pointer and he made the pointer bigger and he made it lime green. And I discovered that I like the size. I don't like the lime green. So I changed it to purple, which is my favorite color. And now I have this nice big purple arrow and it just makes things easier to find. All of these adjustments are just part of the control panel or the settings in our computers. And they're very easy to do and they just can make life so much easier. Then, of course, the last thing is speech recognition. And speech recognition used to be special when I started doing this 30 years ago. Speech recognition was just coming out and you had to pay $10,000 for the computer and then you had to pay $15,000 to $20,000 for the software so that you could talk to your computer. and you could only say one word at a time. So dictation went very slowly. Speech recognition has come so far since then. So we can talk to all of our devices and we can control our devices by speech now. One thing to remember for those of you who haven't tried it yet is speech recognition writes what you say, not what you mean. So if you have any interesting little speech habits, you are going to find them out. I found out the hard way that I say the word an awful lot when I'm dictating. So you will find out all of your little speech habits, but speech recognition is a great way for somebody who maybe isn't a good speller. For instance, my husband has dyslexia and he's very intelligent, but he's not a very good speller. So once he learned how to dictate, oh my gosh, it opened up an entire world of words that he would have been afraid to try and use in written form because he wouldn't have been able to spell them. But with dictation, he could. So it's been just a marvelous quality of life thing. And you can use speech recognition to control a lot of things. Most of the features that I've pointed out today can be controlled by voice. So we are very close to 5 o'clock. Are there any questions?
We do have a question from Daniel. Daniel wants to know, what is the name of the recorder app for an iPad, if you know?
It is called, and I have to look it up, I think it's Voice Recorder. And I'm just looking for it right now. Voice Memos. It's called Voice Memos.
Awesome. And that is the only question we have so far. In the last couple of minutes, do you want to tell us anything about Independence First?
The assistive technology program that I run here at Independence First is open to anyone, family, or person with a disability. We are just starting to open up now after COVID. So if there's a piece of equipment that somebody wants to see or, just explore, we still can't take drop-ins, but you can certainly call, make an appointment, and I'd be happy to demonstrate anything for you. As we open up, we have a couple of really great resources. One is called the Bat Cave, and that deals with bathroom assistive technology. And then we also have the Thrive and Place Center or TIP Center, which is for resources for equipment that might be useful to older adults and their caregivers. In addition to like I said, close to 1,700 devices in our program covering all sorts of disabilities. So we really try to be a resource for the community, just to make sure that when you go out and you buy some equipment for yourself, that you're getting the right thing for you, based on actual hands-on experience and the ability to know for sure whether or not something's going to work for you.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for presenting for us today. That was a wonderful presentation, Cindy. Thank you very, very much.
Appreciate the invitation. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.